Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we do go. Judd and Chip, Purple Daily, actually Purple Access. Appreciate you joining us. Plenty to get to, including the start of a 3-day rookie camp as we get near. I think we're in phase 2 then, Chipper. I think we're on the field. I think we're in phase 2 of the Vikings off-season program. But first, before we get to that, I want to tell you about Kwik Trip. Because Kwik Trip, first-round draft pick. First overall pick as far as convenience stores go. And I want to tell you in specific about their chicken. Because this is no ordinary chicken. Hand-breaded, fried to perfection, and ready for you and your family to enjoy for dinner. Try their juicy chicken tenders or boneless wings that are perfect for dipping. Try the crispy chicken sandwich, which is filled with flavor for lunch. You know what? If you stop at Kwik Trip, you'll find that there is an array of offerings. It's like a grocery store, only easier. You can get gasoline. You can order it on your app, so it'll be ready for you as soon as you arrive. That is what Kwik Trip offers. It's why it is a first-round draft pick. All right, Chip Scoggins, let's start on the rookie camp. I do want to say this. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have draft picks. We're going to have undrafted free agents. Mm-hmm. And we are going to have guys who are trying out, and they don't announce that previously, so it's just going to be guys.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about this, and you covered this guy a lot, so I'm curious to get your thoughts. So the Vikings actually gave Max Brosmer, I think, $250,000 guaranteed, which is not bad. It's a 3-year contract. Now, that means nothing, but the guarantee, he got a $10,000 signing bonus. They clearly saw something that they liked. Do you think that, because mentally I've been saying the depth chart is McCarthy 1, which is obvious. Yeah. Sam Howell 2, Brett Rippon 3. Having covered Max, do you think I'm selling him a little bit short? Do you think there is a chance that he could compete for the 3rd spot on the roster?
I guess there's probably a chance. I think practice squad is probably more likely, but I got to be honest with you. He surprised me this year. I mean, I had the whole, well, he's coming from New Hampshire and this is going to be a big jump to the Big Ten and how's he going to assimilate and do all that? Well, he was their best quarterback since Adam Weber in terms of production and all the things that he was able to accomplish in 1 year. So I don't think the grasping the offense and concepts and all the things that Kevin O'Connell throws at him will be a huge obstacle because he's an incredibly smart quarterback. I mean, you listen to PJ Fleck and their offensive coordinator, Greg Harbaugh, talk about him and just the way he processed and the way he studied, and he basically lived at the Gophers practice facility because he was in there watching film all day. And so I think he'll be able to pick up that quick. It's just, there's the physical part of it too that he needs to develop. So, but I guess conceivably, and these tryouts, I think my favorite tryout story of all time with this is because these are long shots, right? These guys coming in. But I go back to Marcus Sherels, and Marcus was going to go to law school, and he got invited by Rick Spielman and Vikings to come to one of these. It was a tryout. I don't think he even signed a contract. It was just a tryout. Come for the weekend type thing. What this is.
Thielen, right?
Thielen.
He was the same way. He didn't sign.
And Thielen took it more, but Marcus told me the first day he only got 2 reps. They put him in for 2 reps, and he's like, well, okay, that was fun. I'll go on back to law school. And he said, I'll finish out the weekend. I'm not going to, And, after the weekend, they said, hey, we want to sign you to come to training camp. And then from training camp, and Thielen, I don't know, how many reps or if he was a guy they really were targeting than Marcus Sherels was. But you can turn something, one of these weekends into a career. It doesn't happen a lot.
Right. It's a long shot.
It's a long shot, but it's cool when you hear guys come through that path versus, the guys that are drafted and pretty much guaranteed they're going to be around for a while. So,
right.
But yeah, I thought about that because Max Brosmer is a guy I think will, whether it's the Vikings or somewhere, I think he'll stick around the NFL because he's so smart and such a good leader, and
That's why I'm
guy that
asking.
people gravitate to. He'll do whatever they ask. So
Right. But O'Connell knows what, I don't think that they signed Brosmer as a favor like he's not.
no, I don't think
O'Connell knows his quarterbacks. That's why I'm curious too, because Max got a decent chunk of change to come here, but he's not expensive as far as things go. And I think that they really like Rippon in the room, but I mean, I don't think he's got any future. Like I think he's probably a coach, which is fine. But that's why I'm asking is with Max, if they say, hey, you know what? It's a long shot, but we liked you enough to bring you here. And then like you said, I mean, everything, and I didn't cover him, but everything I read is he's a great kid. Like he galvanized things. He's great as like a quarterback, like the type of guy that would take guys out to dinner and stuff. It just strikes me, it strikes me as an interesting opportunity because he's got a coach who's going to know what he's watching as opposed to a coach who's like, I can't work with this, whatever.
Yeah, and I thought there's a decent chance he would get drafted, maybe 7th round. He didn't, but he went to the combine. He got invited to the combine, and so he had all those interviews, and it was so he joined the excuse me the Viking or the Gophers as a transfer. He did it at mid-year, so he actually went to the bowl game. He was like, hadn't played that season, but he was at the bowl game learning, doing all those things. So, and then last spring, or it would have been summer, but he took all the wide receivers. He lives in outside of Georgia, and his family has a place on the lake there, and he brought all the wide receivers down there for a guys' weekend. They did all the, they went to a football field and did all the workouts, but then they went out on the boat. He took them to Atlanta Braves game, and that's kind of what he does.
You're like, why didn't you invite me?
Yeah,
well, Braves fan. You love your
actually,
Bravos.
Our beat writer Randy Johnson went down that weekend and hung out with him. But he would during the week, him and the lineman went out for dinner downtown every once a week, and his rule was no talking football. You had to talk about your life, talk about whatever, but no talking football. Wow. It's just stuff like that, Right. I mean, does that? I think that goes a long way in the locker room. That a guy gets to know his teammates, the leader, and it can be tricky for a quarterback coming in with 1 year as a grad transfer. I mean, you got to be a leader like that, and you got to have guys follow you like that. Yep. And he did. And you talk to anybody associated with that program, just absolutely loved what Max Brosmer did in 1 year. So I can see why Kevin O'Connell, I'm sure they spent a lot of time either at the combine or just being over at the facility, saw something in Brosmer that said, hey, let's bring him in. And so I'm curious to see kind of where it goes. If it's a practice squad, if he winds up being number 3, I think it'll be a good match with O'Connell to have, those two paired together.
Hey, to circle back on Sherels, question for you.
Yeah.
At what point in time did they look at him to return punts? Because I contend in the time I've covered this team, and I mean, going back to a fan as a kid, he is one of, if not the best punt returner as a Viking I've seen. So like to find that skill set, like those guys are hard to find. He basically stuck in this league eventually based on that.
Well,
but he was so good at it.
Yeah. Was it his first? It wasn't his first year he took over it, right? When did he become
did they sort of know when they invited him to the camp? Like, cause what a great attribute to have.
Yeah. I will say this, like, okay, he was not big. Obviously he was the smallest guy in the roster, but he was incredibly athletic. When you look at like, agility, high jump, quick burst, stuff like that. You look at his measurables and like when he did his pro day, I mean, it's like, wow, this guy is, but he was just small, right? He wasn't a big guy. So they probably looked at it as like, I'm sure they looked at that and said, he could probably be a pretty good punt returner. And then when they saw him, that he was sure-handed, and that was the number one thing with Marcus, is he wasn't going to fumble. And he could take, I mean, I remember he was tough. There were a couple games where he just got really rocked pretty good, and he would just bounce right up and keep going. And, I mean, Judd, he played, 7, 8 years? Right? 8 years?
They brought him back at the end because he signed with the Saints.
Yeah.
Late in his career, he signed with the Saints, and the thing that he combined was, and this is what's so tough. It feels like you can get a guy that can return punts, but if he's good at returning punts, lots of times he's very iffy with the football, which you cannot have. Yeah. The other guy is Bobby Wade, who will fair catch everything, never really screws up, but you're going to get almost no returns. Marcus would change field positions and not fumble.
He was slippery as a returner. I mean, he could, and quick, and the thing he was really good at, and I think you have to have that as a punt returner, it's just not going to work. You got to make that first guy miss, right?
Yes.
You got to be able to do that on your own, which is hard. And he, because he was so shifty and slippery, and he did that. And he was sure-handed. I don't know off the top of my head how many fumbles he finished with his career, but it wasn't many. I mean, he was sure-handed, and I think that's something any coach, that's number one thing. Are you going to secure the ball? Because that drives him crazy when they fumble punch. So he's number one. But, that family, him and his brother Mike, are near and dear to me, especially, I got to know him really well too. But Mike, obviously, I became close with. But one of my favorite columns I ever did as the Vikings beat writer was, Marcus, you couldn't get to say anything. The quietest
I remember,
athlete I've ever encountered. Super nice, but just quiet. And so he wouldn't talk about himself, wouldn't talk about he's just a quiet guy. Whereas Mike, his older brother, is, an extrovert. He's, chatty and talkative. But I once went around for a column in the spirit of that. I went around and asked every Viking player to give me one word to describe Marcus Sherels. And my whole column was just all the, every player saying what one. It is fascinating to hear all the different words that guys came up, probably 5 or 6 of them did the obvious quiet, right. But there were some really, it was professional, accountable, dependable, athletic. It was really, it was a fun column to do. And you talk about a guy who turned a 2-day tryout into an NFL career.
Right.
Because he was really good at one specific thing.
Right. And a valuable career.
He
contributed. He scored touchdowns. Like, how many punt return touchdowns outside of Marcus in your time covering the Vikings? How many punt return touchdowns have you seen?
Oh boy.
I feel like you've seen more kick return touchdowns.
Well, with Cordero,
back in the day.
Cordero, sure, you saw those. Yeah, Patterson.
But I
punt returns.
They are.
Yeah.
Because guys are on you immediately. And again, it's interesting that O'Connell didn't bring back his friend Brandon Powell, who I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I wonder if O'Connell either sees the opportunity for more return yards or there were times where Powell had a little bit of an issue last year. Now, I don't remember fumbles, but I do remember some close calls. Yeah. And I know the coaches, that's one thing that they just cannot tolerate.
It is. I mean, when you put down job description of a punt returner, the number one thing without a doubt is you got to have ball security. You can't fumble. And, it's great if you can return one every now and again, but if you have a fumble problem, you're not going to last in that job very long. And so I thought Marcus was kind of the best of both of those. He could spring one, but he also was going to be sure-handed.
Absolutely. So what piques your curiosity the most about the 3-day camp that we're actually going to have some access tomorrow on Friday, but then it goes through Sunday, Saturday and Sunday are closed. Can't say I'm too upset about that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to say because you always say, I want to see the draft picks.
Right.
I'm sort of, and I don't have the full list of the undrafted free agents, but they need to hit on a couple of those, Judd. Maybe more than a couple. I mean, that's where, if you look at the last couple of years, they've had some guys that, Pace, right? Was he an undrafted guy?
Yep,
yeah, right.
He was undrafted from Cincinnati. Shocking he didn't go in like the 6th round.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it's another one where they look at size and think, they get enamored with what it says on paper. But,
right.
Odds are there'll probably be 2 or 3 guys in that group that wind up being contributors. And they need to be because you had so few draft picks. So I'm kind of interested to see if any of those guys flash that. And anymore, sometimes they pay those undrafted free agent guys pretty good money because
Vikings do especially now.
Yeah, they Well, especially because they only had 5 draft picks. There's obviously other guys that they like. They just didn't have the picks to go get them, and so so that I want to obviously be a lot of attention on the first round pick on the line, kind of see what he looks like, and but yeah, I just think if there's I'm a sucker for the long shots, man.
It's a great story.
I love those stories, man.
Well, I mean, the draft, as long as the draft seems to us, it's really not, it used to be 12 rounds when we were kids. So there's a lot of talent that falls through the cracks. And I think we talked about this previously, but what was so interesting about this draft in particular was it was a bunch of COVID year kids and things like that. So there was, I talked to someone who basically said, there's a huge chunk of kids who ordinarily would have been late round draft picks who were just passed on. So like there's a chance to what you're saying that you could have hit on a couple because they should have been drafted and there was not room for them to be drafted.
Well, that's it. It's like, honestly, Judd, because I cover a ton of college sports too. With the eligibility and COVID year and extra year, I never know, like, there's so many guys that are like 5th year, 6th year, 7th year.
Yep. Yeah.
That it's I never really know what year certain guys are. It's just, but I could see where you talked about the guys had the COVID year, and there's probably just more good players available, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
That would have gotten drafted, previously. Yep. So yeah, I mean, that's what do they normally bring in? It was like 20. There's not a cap. Is there a cap on that? There's not a cap, right?
There's financial caps. So you can't exceed some amount. Someone explained it to me. It was so confusing.
It's convoluted.
But
it's normally like 20, right?
They signed like 17 last year. It was 20 this year.
Yeah.
But again, they do pay some of them pretty well. Max Brosmer is going to walk away regardless with $250,000.
Yeah.
That's a pretty nice investment in a guy who might just, be done. We don't know.
And that tells me when you make that kind of commitment, one, he probably had other options, and two, you probably view him as a potential practice squad guy.
Absolutely. One that intrigues me a lot, and I think he was one of the biggest surprises among the names of guys that didn't get drafted, period. Offensive tackle Logan Brown. Now, he started, I think, at Wisconsin, went to Kansas then. I think there was an expectation that he was definitely going to go probably at least 5 through 7. He didn't go. But the more I read up on this kid, one, I think he's got a chance to make the roster. But two, sounds to me, because he played right tackle, that I do. And at some point in time here, you are going to have to plan for Brian O'Neill's career to be done. Like, he's played a while. That's a pretty brutal job itself. So I wonder if this kid has a potential inside track, not to necessarily be like the first guy off the bench if there's an injury, but to be the long-term replacement for O'Neill, who, I mean, I'm sure he can play for 4 more years or so, but the reality is he's also been hurt. So
yeah, and it is, his replacement might be still playing in college, but
right.
I don't know much about him, but I mean, obviously he played in a Big Ten and and another power
Kansas.
Your
daughter went to Kansas,
and they're I mean, that
Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I expected you to be up on the whole Jayhawks roster.
I do know their offensive coordinator quite well, and his son Zach Zabrowski is a quarterback who
just a regular Sid now. I know
I know
the offensive coordinator pretty well.
I hear he might show up at the Vikings for a tryout at some point. So I think he did some stuff with the Chiefs last week.
Okay.
Zach played Division II. He went to Northern Illinois and played Division II.
Not bad.
Basically won the Division II Heisman back-to-back years. Just set is in Missouri. I can't remember the exact name. It's Central Missouri. I can't remember the name of the school. Actually, did a little item on him for my football across Minnesota a couple years ago.
Which is coming back in the fall, right?
It is coming back, but yeah. The guy you're talking about the offensive lineman. I know Seifert's kind of mentioned this guy, Walter Rouse, the guy that they drafted
last year.
Like, you see that guy in the locker room, he's humongous. Like, I don't know what.
It sounds like they moved him to guard or that they're going to experiment with him at guard, which
Yeah.
you know what? It makes some sense now. It is interesting. And I feel like this is within, oh boy, the last 5 years or so tops. You know, there have always been flexible guys, right? But they were sort of just
Yeah.
backup guys. Like the expectation now that guards can play tackle and tackles can play guard, like starting, is
Yeah.
really intriguing. I mean, because their body types used to be so different, and there
Yeah.
was this separation of church and state, right? Like if you're a
Yeah.
guard, you're a guard, and if you're a starting tackle, you're a starting tackle. It is really intriguing to me now that aside from center, it feels like there's much more of a guard can kick out to tackle, a tackle can go inside to guard.
Yeah, and I don't know if that is it's a trend, and I don't know the reason behind it in college other than I just think guys are a lot more athletic.
Yes.
Then I don't know if it's like do guys come in and say, "Hey, I want to cross train.
But do you remember the old arm
play.
thing?
Yeah.
Like guards
Well,
at
that's it.
certain
Yeah.
arms, tackles
Yeah,
at certain
that's it.
arms.
long
Tackles were
wingspan, yeah,
big, taller,
yeah.
heavy dudes.
6'7".
Guards
yeah.
were like little stout guys that would
Yeah.
kick your ass.
My hunch is because the training is so different now than when, back in the day that guys are just more athletic and they can do more and they have better feet and better, more well-rounded skill sets. And so they're probably just able to do it a lot easier now than they used to be able to.
Yeah, you also bring up an interesting point too, because I think we assume that because the 22 draft class unfortunately was so bad, I think we assume that Kwesi completely missed on all like draft classes, which is not true. I am curious about the 24 class now, like Rouse. Yeah. Is Rouse going to be a contributor in some way, like as a backup? It's, you can't begin to judge the 2024 draft class till after this season, and then it's an ongoing process. But I feel like there's this whole, and I might be wrong. It feels like there's this whole thing of, well, look at all the draft classes, which is, we don't know yet.
There's some unknowns, some questions. Sure. Lewis Seen, we know that didn't work out, right?
Well, 22's
that was, yeah. But this is part of when you lean so heavily on free agency. Well, you're relying on older, established guys, and the young guys just haven't had their chance, or they need to develop, or whatever. I don't think that they've necessarily given up on some of those. It's just they've
right.
The competitive part of the rebuild is, hey, let's go get some free agents that are to fill all these holes, and it hasn't been your classic rebuild where it's like, okay, we're just going to put a bunch of young guys out there and see who can play, and then learn. It hasn't been that case. So yeah, like I walked around, like I have no idea if he's can play or not. I see him in the locker room, and I think he's gigantic, but that's for them to determine. But it'll be interesting to see if some of those guys that we haven't heard of yet push for playing time or more prominent roles this training camp.
I feel like the one guy that really, and this is not going to come as a surprise at all, but I feel like the one guy that really has to step up, and I don't know exactly what his role is going to be, but Dallas Turner. Like that's because that's a first round pick. You gave up a ton to go get him. It looked like a good pick. He contributed sparingly. I mean, he did contribute, but he contributed sparingly. Yeah. But that feels like a big one that's going to be, and probably pretty well judged by a lot of people after this coming
2 years. After 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Because you can rationalize it like, hey, he was behind the starting Pro Bowl rush-ins. Like, you're not going to play much then. But after 2 years, it's like you need to see some significant progress, particularly just like you said with what they gave up to move up and get him. They're so aggressive with it. And my hunch is we will see that. I think he needed an off-season to get bigger. I think he needs to put on some weight. I think he needed that some time to learn Brian Flores' scheme and kind of, even though he played in, the SEC, I'm sure he probably still just was physically better than, 90% of the guys he went against, whatever the number is. Well, all the tackles are good in the NFL. It's like you got to figure out different moves and combinations and all those things. And so, but I do think, and we started to see, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but his playing time like steadily got more and more.
And he did get some sacks and some statistics.
Some
it wasn't
strips,
like a total washout.
Yeah, I mean he had a couple splash plays. So, but yeah, I mean I think everybody's anticipating that he needs to make a pretty significant jump in terms of his overall impact.
I wonder if he'll be used as a rotational guy behind Van Ginkel and Grenard, or as that, obviously, but also, and he got a little bit of playing time here last year, but Flores is so creative. I wonder if he will be used at times as an inside off the ball linebacker to create disruptions of sorts.
And have them all three on the field at the same time?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So you don't necessarily know who's coming from where, because Van Ginkel actually did also get some snaps like that.
Yeah,
but it's more of a allusion to the offense to not know exactly who's going to be coming.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing about Flores that we've seen is like there's no rules in his defense. I mean, there's rules, but not like the standard rules. It's like, okay, you play here, you
as
play
we
here.
Think about the rules.
As we think about it, yeah.
I agree.
It's sort of like let's throw a lot of stuff out there and see what works and what these guys can do, and if it's a little unconventional, okay, so what? So I bet you can see that if he feels like Turner can handle it, and it's to me, I think he looks at it as like, okay, I want to get the best 11 guys on the field, whatever position they play, and then we'll figure it out. So, so that's where I'm intrigued because, I mean, you talk to teammates about Turner and they're like, man, just the physical attributes that he has. It's like, you've got to be able to maximize that some way, right? Like they marvel at how just explosive he is and kind of that, just physical attributes that explosiveness that he's bringing. So I'm sure Flores will use him like a chess piece and kind of figure out the best way to use him.
And I do buy that trying to step into that defense, especially as a young guy, would be incredibly difficult. And I don't think Flores would throw you out there to fail. So like I'll buy the work in progress thing here far more than I do potential bust.
Well, yeah, and part of it is like if he was just playing behind two guys that were, okay. I mean, they were starting Pro Bowl. Right. They're Pro Bowl starters. I mean, the two rush-ins, and like I would have a hard time taking either one of those guys off the field too much, to let a rookie come in. So, so I agree with you. I can buy that some, but like, you knew that going in and you drafted him, so you felt like this guy is going to help you, in a big way. So, so yeah.
Last thing, running back has begun to intrigue me a ton. So this draft was filled with them. They didn't take one. They are set like health, if health sticks, which is incredibly important. If they remain healthy, I should say. Aaron Jones is starting. Jordan Mason probably starting sometimes, but they are 1 and 1A. What intrigues me is they didn't take one in the draft, and I guess this was like running back rich, like incredible.
I thought the position is dying, Judd.
Well, the funny thing is, okay, you know what though? That whole thing frustrates me because so I totally get why guys like you cannot count on them to play long.
No.
But so I'm never going to pay one a boatload for a long period of time. Yeah. But I feel like that created this whole thing that teams don't run. And yes, they're running more now, but like I think we always thought that it was important, but the problem is, and this was like in 2015 or so, this was the poster child. Adrian Peterson's contract and term was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's as good as he was. It was ridiculous.
Like we said devalued. The position has been devalued. Sorry to get off on a tangent on that.
No, this is right.
We'll start. But
no, I like this. Yeah.
It hasn't been devalued in terms of its importance. Correct. It's just in terms of you're not going to give a guy an 8-year, $100 million contract unless Derrick Henry might be a special case or whatever.
But his knee could blow up tomorrow,
Yeah, but we heard devalue, and I think we took that to mean it's not important, and that's not true at all.
If you want to get paid a lot, if you want to make your bones, and I mean a long-term football contract, right? You still should not necessarily play running back.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get like the smartest thing that you can do is draft one and use and hit 100 miles per hour, floor the gas pedal for the rookie contract. And if the guy's done after that, like, I mean, this is a terrible business. You don't really care. So like that's like, I don't think that we've ever said that it doesn't matter. I mean, how many conversations while Peterson was here did we have about the fact that it was as great as that dude was? It was a negative. He couldn't block. Like the running back position is incredibly important. Am I going to pay one the most and max him out? Absolutely not.
You're not going to get 3 bites of an apple, like big bites, probably.
Correct.
Right.
That's where
you'll get a second one probably, but you probably won't get the third one.
But you're not going to get the Justin Jefferson bites though.
No. Yeah, you're not going to get.
And that's never going to happen.
No, but it's like, it's like, the NFL's became a passing league. And it's passing crazy, and they don't run it. And it's like, yes, but also no. Like you've got to be able to run it too, right?
Correct. And if you can protect the quarterback, like if you can pick up the blitzer, you're more valuable. So like, it's weird. It's almost like we dismiss the position as being dead.
Yeah.
And we never did that.
Not.
All we said was the running backs are going to get hurt quicker.
Yeah, so you don't want to. Yeah,
so you don't want to invest in one. But it got to be this really weird. The conversation turned weird.
I know. So what were you going to say? They got 2 and they don't have a third. Yeah, sorry.
So they've got Mason, they've got Jones, they've got Chandler. My contention is he's not going to make the team. I think that O'Connell is up to here with his deficiencies. So that they signed a undrafted kid. Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State. They've got a kid by the name of Xavier Scott, who I believe was on a practice squad last year. Yeah. But I'm just curious, what's your intrigue and what do you think they're going to do there? Because I think that there's a very good chance that the third running back to open the season is not on the roster.
Yes.
And if you tell me it's Cam Akers, I'm going to tell you I hope they don't trade a 6th round pick again for him.
No, I don't. And if Ty Chandler was going to have secured that job, he would have done it. It means this is 3rd or 4th year. I mean, he's had opportunities
he's 22 draft, right?
Yeah,
2022 draft.
He's had opportunities to solidify himself. So it might be one of these young guys that they're bringing in that they're saying, hey, that job's wide open.
Right.
And it's, I don't think anyone has cemented themselves in that. Yeah, it is interesting. I'm curious to see how O'Connell, and this is not for the, training camp, but once we get in the season, like how many carries does Mason get? What's the balance between Aaron Jones and Mason? Is it 60-40, 70-30?
I think it's closer. I think
50-50?
I think it's as close as you can get, maybe not split, but I mean, I think he's going to get all the deep red zone carries.
Yeah.
And I do think like Jones, so I think everything the Packers thought about Jones is accurate. I think he's really good. Yeah. I think he can be really good. He can catch passes, but he has to have a guy splitting time. Like he cannot be a bell cow. Yeah. And it's not his fault. He's just not that big.
Yeah.
And he gets hit hard a lot. So, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 60-40 or closer.
Yeah. You? No. Particularly because I think they made that trade with something definitive in mind in terms of short yardage, red zone, 3rd and 2. We want 3 or more, but and that's not to say Aaron Jones can't, because I thought Jones did a nice job. Like he was always like pushing a pile, and it wasn't. Remember what drove O'Connell crazy when Dalvin was here was all the 0 and negative yard runs, and he thought, okay, that's really going to turn it over to Alex Madison because we're not going to have as many. It became the buzzword efficient. We need more efficient runs, not necessarily more runs.
Right.
I mean, I thought Jones got some hard yards too, but but it wasn't. you need more than him, right? They need.
He just wore down too.
He just wore down.
Like
yeah.
he got worse as he wore down, which made perfect
as the
sense.
carries went up. Yeah, as the carry,
Yeah.
as the workload. So, but I think that has the potential to be a pretty good 1-2 punch.
I will say this: if Chandler's not going to make the team, the more I have thought about this, though, I do wonder. I think the running back position is one at which O'Connell doesn't have the patience for a young guy. So I wonder if they would go get a veteran in case Jones or Mason
You want
gets
3
hurt.
veterans though? I mean,
No, but I
Mason?
just mean a guy that can not like a starting type of guy, but a veteran that knows how to pick up the protections and stuff.
Yeah,
Like Chandler clearly drives O'Connell nuts. And I think O'Connell's got a lot of time for quarterbacks. I think he's got a lot of time for receivers, the passing game, because he loves it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Akers kept getting brought back because he just simply knew what he was supposed to do.
he was reliable and
He was reliable,
did his
right.
job. Yeah.
So I'm
yeah.
not saying
you're
like
100%.
like a big name. It feels to me like the backup running backs is something that O'Connell doesn't want to deal with. Like he just wants to know that you're going to do your job.
Do your job. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're going in there, you got to be dependable, got to be reliable, and he doesn't want to have to. Yeah.
He doesn't want to see you getting
worry that the. Yeah.
blown by
Yeah.
a big mammoth man who's going to kill his quarterback.
That's right. It's like just protect the quarterback.
Do
at all
your
times.
job.
That's right.
That's all he
That's it.
wants.
I know.
All right, Chipper. Talk to you next week, man. Take
All
care.
right, brother. We'll see you, man.